Yeah, here.
Chicka, chicka. Yeah.
Kill Bill and Rev. We don't suck. Ooh.
Okay, I'm ready. Episode 93. Did I say 93? I meant 83. But yeah.
It's 83. Yeah. Check. My dick is infected. Check. My dick is erected. My dick is infected. My dick is erected. My dick is infected. My dick is erected.
Hey, Bill, what's going on, man? What's up?
Check.
Welcome back to the podcast, episode 83. We don't suck.
83.
So-
That's your favorite sex position.
It is. I'm the 8. No, I'm actually the 3.
I just...
Yeah, just erect turned at me, looking at me. Right. And I'm just like a contortionist.
Yeah. Perfect.
So we actually,
just reminds me of home.
Right before we jumped into this podcast, we do this thing. Bill and I always do this thing. We get in a call before the podcast, and we start talking about something that's like that we're interested in, and then we go on a tangent, and then we're like, oh shit, maybe we should have saved that for the podcast. But this time we kind of stopped ourselves 10 minutes into our conversation and we're like, hey, maybe we ought to just continue this on the podcast. So Bill, what were we talking about?
We were talking about lo-fi beats and the difference, the different stages of lo-fi, how we perceive lo-fi now, how we feel being called lo-fi rappers.
Yes. So, and
we were talking about a lot of stuff.
We were talking, of course, about modern lo-fi. So everything from Nujabes and post Nujabes. We're not talking about Tribe Called Quest. We're not talking about Pete Rock. You know, I would definitely accredit people like Pete Rock and Q-Tip and even DJ Premier for the sound that people like, you know, the sampling jazz and sampling soul and stuff like that, and in the way that they did, and mixing that in with hip hop. But we're talking Nujabes and onwards. So let's say Nujabes is, or do we even count Nujabes? Or I guess we should, right? Or
I wouldn't. I mean, okay, listen. I think that there's this weird thing with lo-fi that people don't count Nujabes for some reason. I mean, like it's the same kind of music. It's just like the prototype. Like it's like the archetype for like what a lot of other people did. So it's kind of like, it's like calling Dilla lo-fi. Like I wouldn't call Dilla lo-fi,
but it's in a similar vein.
It's the same idea, you know. It's the whole.
So how about we call them
drumming, everything.
We call them the pilot or the alpha, right? And then the first wave,
like proto lo-fi,
proto lo-fi, and then the actual lo-fi, the first wave would have to be, you know, a lot of the spin-off stuff, like the people who either came up with or around Nujabes, you know, like Fat John and No Mac. And then the second wave would be people like Beside You, like Swum, That Foot Dive, I guess Patsu, I think, is Patsu 2 or 2.5, somewhere. Patsu's between wave 2 and 3, I think.
I don't know the like actual time periods. Like there's going to be people who are like,
because I think Patsu's pretty young.
I feel like there's like going to be a lot of people who listen to this who are like way deeper into lo-fi, who are like, actually that's third wave or whatever. I've always considered second wave, because like in my brain, this is how I compartmentalize things that sound like Nujabes. And like just all the people who were fans of his, who made those Adult Swim type beats, like
the bumps.
The bumps. Yeah, the first. I would look at that as the first wave. Then the second wave, I look at. I put it in the same pocket as all the like SP404 users who make these like really like super compressed sounding, lacking a lot of high end. They use a lot of the effects a lot. It sounds more like a live performance.
Yeah, like Stein.
Kind of wonkier beats. Stein's a great example. Like Berthollet would be another good one in that scene. Like Deadbeat, would shout out Deadbeat. I just worked with him. A bunch of people from like that 2013 to 2015 era,
right,
of like really like like everybody was using the anime, like, and I don't mean like anime like the lo-fi girl pictures, but I'm talking about like they use a lot of Sailor Moon art,
Sailor
and a
Moon,
lot of like
Pokemon,
nostalgic,
a lot of late 80s, early to mid 90s images, you know. So yeah, that era for sure. And now, so do you consider that this is the third era of lo-fi that we're seeing right now?
Yeah, I don't know. Actually, I would say it's probably like a fourth era because there was like some time in between. Yeah, I don't know like if what you would call it, because like I kind of lost interest in following lo-fi
after the second wave
in the same way after second wave, because
same.
I feel like what happened was, I don't know what like where the turn happened exactly, but I would say post drop season for me, it was a lot harder for me to find beats that have just came out that like fit my mood
right
a lot, like a lot of those, and there was definitely a shift sonically in lo-fi, and I think like a lot of like, I would say it's like happier sounding.
Yeah, it's a little, there's like, yeah, there's definitely a lot of this brighter and kind of, you know, just, it's, yeah, definitely happier sounding, a little bit more preppy. And just before we continue going into this any further, I kind of wanted to clarify my stance on like what is referred to as lo-fi. I came up listening to Tribe, you know, that's what got me into hip-hop, and I got in when I started recording rap digitally. I would rap over Q-Tip beats, I would rap over Pete Rock beats, I would rap over Premiere beats. These were like my favorite like types of beats to record over. And around 2010, 2011, I started finding, like, discovering producers like Nomac, who sort of, you could consider them a new job as Spawn. And this is way before the term lo-fi had been created. I used it sometimes to refer to my music when I did actually do low fidelity recordings, you know? And I considered that because I was recording in my bedroom and everything, there was what I do as lo-fi by comparison with what the contemporary sound was at the time. And then afterwards, you know, I sort of went into, and I've never like, I don't think I've ever pigeonholed myself with a single sound. I just like boom-bap in general is where I'm going with this. Boom-bap is like a sound I grew up on, I came up on, and to me, lo-fi, or what we refer to as lo-fi, is a gentrified boom-bap. And with that being said, and I appreciate a lot of the music coming out of that, from that scene, I hate the idea of being called the lo-fi rapper, especially because I don't rap. Like, more than half of my stuff isn't over anything that in my eyes would be considered lo-fi. Like, even Beneath the Toxic Jungle, which sometimes gets categorized as lo-fi, there's only like a couple of beats that I would sort of agree maybe are lo-fi, you know, like Solanine and stuff like that. But even then, for the most part, the beats are either boom bappy, there's some future funk elements, or like live instrument kind of stuff. I don't want to be a lo-fi rapper. I hate the idea of being considered a lo-fi rapper. And I'm not trying to diss nobody, because I have friends who consider themselves lo-fi rappers. I'm a rapper. That's it. I hate that idea of pigeonholing yourself, especially with something that is now, in my opinion, not just whitewashed, but like boring. I struggle to find beats I like, and I don't look for lo-fi, mind you, right? It's just that is now the most, like, when I look for boom bap or I look for beats, the scene is so saturated. The beat scene is so overly saturated with this third or fourth wave lo-fi production stuff, and it all sounds the same, and it's all, and of course there are some here and there that are kind of interesting, but they're all just, they're ambient music to me. They're not the kind of music where I'd be like, oh shit, this is fucking really exciting and I'm gonna do like a song over this. No, it's like, oh, this is chill, put it in the background.
Yeah I think the difference is now is like I think that what people, just to talk about what you were talking about earlier, to segue into this point, I think that people associate lo-fi with like jazz chords, boom bap type drums, which by the way, that's just boom bap.
That's
if
just
you really
boom
want
bap.
to be real.
Yeah, samples and boom. Yeah,
know,
samples and drums, boom bap.
Yeah, I think that there's a sound now that people have. Okay, I'll give you a good example. I opened up, and I know that you did too, an email for people to send beats to. And I asked for jazzy, kind of lo-fi beats to rap on. And in my head, when I think of that, I think that people have like heard my music enough to like know kind of like what I mean when I say that. And I think a lot of people sent me stuff. I think this is a good one, and I'm not trashing these people's music at all because like I like their music, but like it reminds me of something that like a lot of stuff reminds me of like stuff that like Samsa, like Atlas, like old Love Sad Kid, because Sad Kid's kind of changed up and is doing kind of branched out a bit, but like those types of beats, which like works for them but would not work for me. Like I don't think like
not me either.
These kind of like, I wouldn't even say happy-go-lucky beats, but I think that there's this kind of like very stiff kind of like just like the drums are kind of like, they're not adventurous enough for me, and they don't make me like feel things, you know? And I think that's kind of like that sound and what people associate with lo-fi. And when I think of lo-fi, I think of a very different sound, which just sounds like a bunch of shit that was recorded in a basement, you know, like with a shitty MPC or a shitty 404 with the connectors don't really work that well, you know, and that's kind of the sound that I associate with lo-fi in my brain that is different from boom bap, in my opinion, because a lot of those boom bap tracks, they were like trying to make it sound good in the mix, right, and they succeeded, whereas this is like they just said fuck it, and we're just like, it sounded like these beats that are like real muddy and gross, and I love that shit, and that has kind of disappeared. And I think basically what I'm getting at is, I mean, it's still there. Like DiBiase still makes beats. Like Beside You still makes beats, etc. But I think, like I'm saying, like new people in the scene has shifted in a way that is just not as exciting to me personally. I'm not trying to bag on these producers. Like, get your bread, have fun, make your music the way you want to make your music. I just think, like, for me personally, if I turn on lo-fi radio, like I don't ever hear anything that makes me go like, holy shit, I want to rap on this. Right. You know?
Exactly. And I mean, yes, we're not shitting on everybody. I'm personally think there's very few between that are good. That's it. There are good producers and interesting things being done within the scene, but overall, I'm disappointed. And I come from a slightly different school of thought than Bill, because for me, it's not necessary, the muddiness and the saturation. I think, to me, the saturation is almost like a byproduct of the limitations of your equipment, you know, and that's the kind of the warmth that comes with it, you know. My favorite beats are probably from the 90s, you know, like 93 Till Infinity by Souls of Mischief, Electric Relaxation by Tribe Called Quest, A Little Soul by Pete Rock. And yes, they all kind of have this sound, this kind of uniform sound about them that I think is a byproduct of, you know, again, working in the 90s with equipment that they did. But what I miss about it is, and I miss some of, like, as I said, early 2000s and early 2010s music, is that I felt like sampling was a lot more creative, bold, and brave. Right? Like, I bring up Nomac because I do feel like Nomac sounds nothing like the examples I just gave you, but I loved Nomac because he did something that Nujabes kind of did, where he would take lush music that just didn't sound like it needed to be sampled. Like, it didn't sound like, oh, this would be perfect loop right there, not like in a traditional sense, like with jazz, you know. Like, sometimes they would take things that weren't like strictly jazz, they'd be Japanese jazz, which is like slightly different, and they would bring in drums that were also lush but different, and there would be this clash that was somehow beautiful to me. But at its core, what I loved is things that sounded interesting, things that just sounded unique. And now it's impossible, almost so rare, that I'll turn on lo-fi radio, which I only turn on for background music, mind you, but still, it's very rare that something will come on and I'll be like, oh wow, I've never heard this before. Oftentimes I'll hear the exact same sample over and over again, and I've heard that sample be sampled 20 years ago, and it's still being sampled, and in the same less creative way. There's been so many times where I find a beat and I'm like, I know this sample, and immediately drums come on. I'm like, oh, but these drums are shittier than this other producer that used it. But it's also a drum loop, and they're all using drum loops, and they're all using this like pack of 50 drum loops, and they're all using 2-3 dozens samples, and they're all the same, and that's frustrating. It's like what the examples I gave you with A Little Soul, 93 Till Infinity, Electric Relaxation. Nothing sounds like those beats. If somebody tries to sample those samples now, we'll all be like, oh, is that a reference to that or whatever, because they were done so well. And now it's just
created like a blueprint of like that whole sound, not made the blueprint of what's popular today in that scene, but also it's just like those sample flips are so iconic that like anytime someone, it's like I can't remember exactly what it was, but like me and Joe were listening to some kind of lo-fi. She had some lo-fi on her, like she was listening to the thing on YouTube, you know, with the little anime girl, and she heard a song and she was like, oh, this sampled that song. It was like the song that I can't remember what it was, but it was like an older song that like flipped the same sample, you know? And I was like, no, they probably just flipped the same sample. And then she was just like, well, like, does it even matter if they flip the same sample? If it's like that popular that it's like you're basically just remixing a song. And then I like thought about it and I was like, yeah, when you do something and you flip something and it's iconic, it then becomes like a part of the like lexicon of music in you know what I mean? Like in so then it's like so iconic that you're not even just flipping the same sample, you're basically rehashing it, you know? And I think a lot of lo-fi does that, and it also cannibalizes itself. Like I've heard so many people flip that I fall in love so easily. Yeah. And the first person I heard do it was Evie. And that's like one of my favorite albums. Like I love that Suddenly EP. Like I love that. But then like if you listen to lo-fi radio, it's like you'll hear like 10 different flips that are the same with different drums. Like they don't flip the sample any different than she did, and I don't even know if she's the first person to flip that. Right.
Yeah, no, but at least she did it well. And it's something we also talked about before the podcast, is how before, as you were saying, with, you know, like it was specific equipment or specific styles of trying to do shit and, you know, cultivate new ideas. Now it's everybody just runs their beats through like a detuner, so to create that fake saturation, that sense of saturation, which people like HM Surf are known for, and they do it so well. It actually brightens the music, it gives it this extra dimension of experience. But most of these other people who use it just slap it on there just cause. So it's like, you know, like it has that, oh fuck, is this saturated dope feel. Oh, why don't we also throw some like vinyl crackle or VHS crackle and stuff like that. And that's cool, but if you're throwing that on there just to have a shortcut to be like, okay, it's done, the beat is done, or this is a shortcut to a completion of a song like that, then it's, I don't know, it's played out. It's not to say that it won't sound okay. It's not going to sound god awful. That's the point, is that it's almost impossible to make it sound god awful. It's such an easy thing to do. It's such an easy thing to accomplish, and it's lazy. And again, you don't need to have a very complicated way of going about making a beat to make it worth something. It's just that it sucks to see this happen over and over again. What I loved about the second wave is not being afraid to blend genres. Like the second wave is so great because we had this, it was happening around the same time as like vaporwave had peaked. It just came up, right? And the two genres, like again, lo-fi wasn't even, I don't know if it was called lo-fi at this point yet. Maybe that's when it started being called lo-fi, but there was oftentimes an overlap in production. Like people who would do vaporwave would do future funk, and they would do hip hop, and that hip hop flavor of hip hop would be like, what was his name, Maiton? You know, like he's a great kind of example of someone who would take a very future funk or French house, whatever you want to call it, kind of sound, and mix it with the more vaporwave and lo-fi hip-hop elements together to create something interesting. So you get songs like Devil Fruit Smoothies, you know? And
it's Mitro, by the way.
Mitro, sorry. Yes, I apologize. Yeah, so Mitro is like incredible.
It's all your fault.
Mitro was incredible with doing that. I know that some people went a little further with it, you know, like some people were like, they applied what they learned within the sphere of plunderphonics and vaporwave and house, and they would take it and apply it to trap music like Dr. Pepsi. And then you had people in between, like Black Banshee and Young Bay. But now it just feels like it's just the same thing. It's regurgitated over and over again, and I just want to hear something that doesn't sound like background music, something where it captures my attention, and you can make a song, you can make something that can stand on its own 2 feet. All of this stuff is super subjective, don't get me wrong. My frustrations are mine alone, but I don't know, I've never had this much trouble finding beats in my life. I remember back in the day, Bandcamp and SoundCloud made it so easy. Now
I just came to a realization that my favorite beats to rap on are like people who make future funk, and they just decide, I'm gonna make rap beats.
Yeah, exactly.
Like those are like my favorite. There's something about like that sound that's like they get it. They kind of get it in this situation.
Totally
I don't even know.
Yeah,
they totally get it. Yeah. But I think like yeah, I think that's kind of the thing that's funny, is because like I think a lot of that music gets lumped in with lo-fi, and I don't think it's really lo-fi at all, because it's like it becomes just like, what is your definition of lo-fi?
Exactly.
Because in my head, it came from, now I don't know if this is an actual like thing or not, but I assume that it was a lot of those people who made beats that were like low fidelity, that happened to be like jazz samples and like kind of boom bap, and they were tagging their shit on Bandcamp as lo-fi because it was low fidelity, and then some music writer, like a blogger or like a critic or something, saw that tag being used a lot and was like, this is lo-fi hip-hop, and just like gave it the name. I feel like that's probably. So like then it becomes like, what is lo-fi hip-hop in essence? Like, is there really a necessary like low fidelity like aspect of it, or is it just like this certain like thing, this like umami that you can't fucking like put your finger on, that is indescribable? Because you can describe, like if you describe lo-fi hip-hop to me, you're just describing boom-bap from the 90s.
Exactly.
Like if you just say it.
Yeah.
But is there something like an intangible that makes it lo-fi? Is there something to, because everyone has a different definition, because a lot of people say the beats on like Ramona and Beneath the Toxic Jungle are lo-fi, and I can understand Beneath the Toxic Jungle a little bit more, because a lot of those beats have that like same future funk like down tempo thing going on that a lot of people, but like a lot of the Ramona stuff, I'm baffled, because I'm like, I don't even like, some of those beats don't even have samples.
No, exactly. But at the same time, I think people look at things like Black Coffee and Conversations with Gravity and Dream Eater. I would say like those are 3 great examples of something where they could see that kind of music probably come up on the lo-fi radio and not necessarily be bewildered. You know what I'm saying? And it's, as you said, at that point, it's like, it's just a lot of things are melding together here. So you have just relaxing music. For a lot of people, that's lo-fi. For a lot of people, it's the low fidelity quality, and that it's, digitally saturated and all of that. For some people, it's, as it's the specific samples that you sample, and the BPM range that you play within. So it is a lot of the different stuff, because I know a lot of people would completely disagree in terms of the future funk stuff. A lot of people would say, hey, this future funk stuff like Devil Fruit Smoothies, that doesn't belong in the world of lo-fi. That is more vaporwave than it is lo-fi. And then there's people like me who think, to me, that is more lo-fi than a lot of the new lo-fi stuff, because again, it's the school of thought is more in line with what I appreciated about lo-fi and the second age of lo-fi. So yeah, I think it all depends, and at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. I think the other problem is with how the term lo-fi is thrown around and what it means to people. To a lot of people, I think too many people are just like wearing it as a proud banner, and there's also too many people who are hating on anything that's labeled or categorized in some sort of way in their heads as lo-fi. Like somebody tried to listen to Aerospace the other day, his latest album, Volume 4, and they said, oh, it's lo-fi, so it's sad bullshit emo lo-fi, and they turned it off, right? And then and true, a lot of those producers are like, you know, historically lo-fi, like Takedown and all that, but you listen to that album, and to me, sonically, it's similar to that J Electronica album, or that Jay-Z and J Electronica album that just came out, right? Sonically, it's very similar. Or like what Alchemist did with Freddie Gibbs, or what Madlib does in general. So where does Madlib fit into all of this, right? Someone who's been doing this shit before New Job is and after New Job is. And you a lot of people could probably call him lo-fi by most of the definitions we described, but I don't think anyone does, because he's so good at what he does. He's kind of like, he's a legend, he's a living legend. But
It's transcended. I would say though that I think that if Madlib didn't exist and all of his stuff came out now, people would call it lo-fi.
Possibly, yeah.
Like, I'm not saying that I'm not taking anything away from him. He's like literally one of, if not the best to do it.
He is. You know? He's the this is if everybody made beats like Madlib, I wouldn't be sitting here complaining. You know, Madlib is my favorite producer of all time. To me, he has made beats that just move me in a way that nothing else will. Like, let's take for example, Auditorium, right, off of the Ecstatic album by Mos Def.
Yeah.
In my opinion, arguably the greatest beat of all time.
Yeah, it's great.
Anyone try to flip that sample again, that shit won't work the same way, and it'll be like, oh, you're doing the Madlib flip, you know, or whatever. It's because he found something really interesting, and he didn't, and you can hear that whatever he sampled wasn't like a popular fucking soul or blues sample from the 50s that we've heard sampled a million times before. You know, I guess I miss the crate digging aspect of boom-bap.
Yeah.
And lo-fi doesn't have that.
That's the thing, because like I was listening to, it was like all the flips that were done on Mad Villainy, and it showed like the original sample and the full song, you know, and a lot of those were just straight up loops, right? Like, it was just like he found this weird sample, like, and it's less about,
well, he's the loop digger, right? He's the,
yeah, of course. Yeah. Like, it's like, and like then there's like some on there that are like just phenomenal flips,
compositions, you know?
Yeah, but then for the most part, it was just like him finding like these crazy loops and playing them on top of each other and doing these kind of like weird things. But like, I think the thing is like a lot of these lo-fi dudes don't want to do that work of digging, and they just kind of find whatever is the surface level and say, this'll work.
Right.
Whereas like if you look at someone like Madlib, sure, they might not sit there and like work as hard on the drum composition on some of these things, and then more of it just be like, will this be good for the rapper? Let's just loop it and find stuff that's so weird and out there and hard to find, you know, and like it's more of like to me that's almost like a DJ set. It's like this fucking like, you found the ultimate gold and you're just showing it off to your friends, and you know, and like,
I think you're absolutely
that's crazy
right.
to me.
I think you're absolutely right. And you know what, you just made me realize the other problem I have is, I don't know if you see it the same way, but a lot of this lo-fi shit will literally there'll be no progression to it. Very little in the way of progression. The way they'll add elements that progress to it is like they'll introduce a hi-hat differently, you know, or they'll cut the beat out and bring it back in, or do a little low pass filter for a couple seconds and bring it back in. Not a different part of the sample, you know. It's not like, oh, and here's like a bridge, you know, between the thing that's been looping now for 40 fucking seconds. Now here's this bridge to alternate it in. Oh, and it bridges into a chorus section, right? Something that's really pleasant, but it's short, it's brief but sweet, and then before it goes back into the verse, or because it's lo-fi production 2020, fizzles out and dies, and no song is longer than 1 minute and 15 seconds long, right? It's that to me is so lazy. You find a loop, you loop it, and then that's it. You don't even try to find a different loop within the sample or something to make it interesting. Again, I'm generalizing.
I think
here.
like where that came from, I think where that started, the like super short loop idea came from that second wave era, like that 2013 to 2015 era of lo-fi, because I think what they were doing is like a lot of those dudes would make stuff on their SP404 or their MPC or whatever. Most people were using SPs, I feel like, at the time. And it would be like they would kind of hit a wall, and then they'd be like, oh, okay, well, let's just put this out, right? And it was kind of like they would put out like these beat tapes with like 40 songs on them, but they're all like a minute long, you know? And it was just kind of like, and they would even say like just loops, like on the thing, like loops.
Yeah, I remember that.
It was kind of more like just like, this is what I've got, this is what I'm working on, I'm never gonna finish it. And I think that set a standard for people, because it works for a lot of those, because it's like that's how it's supposed to be ingested. Like it's like the idea is kind of like, yes, this is presented like, look, I have 40 loops for you, you know? And so when you go into it thinking like, oh, okay, yeah, this is what I'm getting, and that's what you get, you know? But then like I think that set a standard for a bunch of people who, like, these people weren't lazy. I feel like the second wave like weren't lazy, but then it kind of like set the standard for, oh, all I have to do is do a minute long song, have little to no progression in it, and it's gonna get 1 million views. And it's the same idea, I think, with it becomes formulaic. I think like lo-fi is the same. Lo-fi in 2020 is the same as dubstep in 2011. Like,
yeah, too formulaic.
It became this formulaic thing, whereas like it was birthed from a very experimental place. Like if you look at like where it came from like this kind of like weird like ambient dark music, and how it just slowly molded into this like very extreme style of music, it's kind of fascinating. But then when it hit at its most extreme point, then it just became like a jerk off session of just like who can outdo the other person but not add anything to the table. It's like all they're doing is like putting more salt on their dish, and they don't care how much salt is in there. They just want more, you know? And I think that it's kind of the same, not in the same way of like they're just trying to push the limits without adding anything else to it. I think it's more of like they found that formula, they know that people like it, and so they're just going to keep doing it forever, you know?
I think you're absolutely right.
Yeah, which is weird now, because if you go and listen to like dubstep now, which I did recently, there's been like so much progression because it's not the big thing. So it's like all the people who are not just doing it just to get clout or just to be like a famous producer or whatever. The scene became more insular, and now like there's like a bunch of different new things that are added, and it's like all these like weird wonky drums and stuff that wouldn't have happened if it was just like everybody wanted to be Skrillex. And I think like the only way realistically that lo-fi can get to that point again is if it like dies off.
Yeah,
then
exactly.
It's like only people who care about it doing it.
And I mean, again, we say all of this with the understanding that there are people out there that are pushing the envelope or doing something new and interesting, you know, produced by Jay. I have respect for Patsu. I think has completely reinvented himself, you know, where he's going for a very different kind of approach in terms of music making than what people kind of maybe know him for, you know? And so I do think there are, and I've heard some of Swam's newer stuff and Deadbeat. So there are people still pushing the envelope, and some people from within the scene who have switched gears and doing something completely different, like Beside You. But yeah, we're just talking in generalities. It's a lot of people just regurgitating the same stuff over and over.
Yeah, I don't want people. I just also want to say, like, I'm not speaking for Rav here because I feel like Rav listens to more lo-fi radio than I do. But, like, I'm not, like, in this scene. I don't know what's going on anymore. All I'm seeing is the surface.
To be honest, the only know is that people from the second and third generation who a lot of us have worked with or we are friends with, and so I pay attention to what they're doing. And the lo-fi radio, I usually have it in the background of my streams because it does offer very good background audio. But I guess I miss lo-fi within rap. Right now, I feel like lo-fi is no longer rap music. It's background music. It's ambient music, and that's fine. But I want someone who's on the forefront. I want lo-fi hip-hop, rapping, boom-bap to be reinvented or pushed forward, or people to get creative again. And I don't mean necessarily like, re-inject plunderphonics into it, although I do think that would benefit the genre. But get a little bit more creative with the samples. There's so much music worldwide that is yet to be sampled. Why do we stick to the same fucking 50 soul and blues songs from like the 20th century? I don't know. It baffles me a bit. It upsets me. I'm gonna pee and poo all over the place.
Yeah, dude, I can't. When you start, you can't stop. Yeah, that's just what they say about you. They say when you start pissing, you better go missing because he can't stop pissing. Is like, what they say.
I think somebody was like saying that Skin was a lo-fi album, and I think it is lo-fi in low fidelity. There's a lot of low fidelity stuff on it, right? But if you listen to the album, like nothing's really on it. It's like traditionally, I would say qualify as lo-fi hip-hop modern, the current era, like other than down.exe.
I don't know. I think Celadon could also be.
I'm trying to think if like Celadon was put on the lo-fi radio, I would turn my head and be like, whoa, what's this? Like, it sounds unique and interesting, and I don't know, even though it's the most stripped down song arguably out of all of them, right? It's again, that's I love Madlib not because he's overly complicated with what he does. I love it because he doesn't add too much. He just finds the best parts and he magnifies them, and that's it. And I think you did that on Celadon. It just sounds great. The beat sounds fantastic, but I don't think it qualifies within the current sphere of lo-fi hip-hop that I would hear on the lo-fi radio. I don't think it would completely be like, yo, this is fucking out of place, get it out of here.
Yeah.
No, it'd be more like, whoa, this is different. It would definitely make me think that this is different. Down.exe, I could sort of hear on it and be like, oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. But that, or like Through the Fog, or Belong, or Half Alive.
I was gonna say, all the stuff that you produced is like definitely like not
right, and yet it is low fidelity.
Yeah. The songs that are the most low fidelity,
yeah, for sure,
are also like the least lo-fi rap. I feel like,
yeah,
it's
for
like,
sure.
I don't know. It's such a weird. I don't know, man. I think that it's just like people have this idea, and it's more of a feeling to them, and they just say like, oh, for fans of lo-fi, if you like lo-fi, maybe it will be like this. That's kind of how I justify it in my head. I don't let it bother me anymore when people say like, oh, he's a lo-fi rapper, but I do think that it's like it puts me in this box with like a lot of other rappers that I don't sound like, like it, like exactly. If you were to say like the same, like okay, for example, like a lot of people like Atlas and they like me and I like Atlas, but I don't sound anything like Atlas. I don't rap over the beats that Atlas raps over. We don't rap about the same shit. We don't rap the same way. It's very different, like a very different corner of like what you consider like the lo-fi rap scene or whatever.
That's right.
But a lot of people, there is a clear like a lot of our fans also like Atlas, and so clearly there's something there that is like a connection, but I don't think sonically we sound anything the same, you know?
No, exactly. It's this whole corner of hip hop. It gets a little confusing because I feel like someone like Milo and someone like myself, we can exist within the same circle or corner of hip hop, but we wouldn't rap over each other's beats like that, you know? And we could rap completely different.
Yeah.
Same as with Atlas, Samsa, even No Name. Although I feel like out of all the names I just said, I feel like No Name is the closest to what kind of stuff we're doing, you know?
Yeah, for sure.
But still, you know, and that's great. I'm glad that there's different stuff for everyone. That's exciting. I'm glad not everyone sounds the fucking same in terms of the rapping, right? It's just that production stuff is getting stale. And to me, the reason to me, in my head, Belong and Through the Fog are, although I don't want to consider them lo-fi, I feel like they are more lo-fi hip-hop than the current genre of lo-fi hip-hop, because I followed, in making those beats, I followed my roots in boom-bap. Find something that sounds interesting, something maybe from your childhood. So I took cartoons from the Soviet Union that I grew up on, right? Sampled those, loop them, find the right loops. And I sampled right from the cartoon. They didn't, I don't know if they ever released soundtracks officially. I ripped them straight from the cartoons, you know? Had to sample them in a way where you don't hear people talking too much and stuff like that, because it's background music. And I found drums, either I made drums or I found drums that I thought would fit specifically that sample. Not drum loops that everyone's used and everyone's accustomed to and it all fucking sounds the same. No, something that fits those samples. That's it. So that to me is boom bap. That to me is low fidelity, because we, you know, made it sound very low fidelity. So, and again, I haven't heard beats like Belong and Through the Fog. And I'm not like some sort of like genius who found two samples that no one else in the world has ever heard. There's millions out there that aren't necessarily no one's ever heard, but ones that I feel like people haven't played around with enough. So why not explore those options instead of going back into your comfort zone of regurgitating the same ones?
No, I 100% agree. I think the sad, unfortunate thing about it is like there's probably so many like really, really good lo-fi producers that are just like slept on because they're outside of the box, or maybe a little wonky, or maybe they flip kind of weirder samples. Like Belong. Like Belong's a pretty weird beat. I love that beat, but it's a strange beat, you know, like definitely it sounds like, oh, this is like taken from a Russian cartoon. You know what I mean? Like it has like a very like surreal kind of out of this world feeling to it. And I think that there's probably like thousands of people who do that, and it's just like they're flying under our radars. You know what I mean? Like,
exactly. Because like that's why I love Ramona so much, and I don't care whether you define it boom bap, lo-fi, rap, whatever. Like just the music, the samples, and people use like Conversations with Gravity. That I haven't heard that sample anywhere else. You know?
Yeah, I don't even know what that sample is.
The Black Coffee, Edo Lee's flip was so good. The original doesn't sound as good to me. The original song, you know, I can't enjoy the same way.
That was the thing, is like I thought when I first heard that beat, I was like, oh, like, I mean, like he just looped that sample. Like I thought that was like that the guitar parts and all that stuff I thought were part of the sample. And then like I heard the original and I was like, holy fuck. He really flipped the shit out of this. I mean, Edo Lee's just like a phenomenal fucking producer. Just really, really good.
Yeah, definitely. Second era, but I think he goes beyond lo-fi. Edo Lee is just
I think he's a little. I mean, he does like some live instrumentation and stuff like that too. Not saying that isn't lo-fi.
That is
like Potsu does that.
Yeah, a lot of people do that now. Yeah, Potsu, City Girl, etc.
Yeah. So I think I don't know. I think that You're right. I do appreciate it, especially when you hear a flip and you're like, holy fuck. Like that one works so well. And then when you listen to the original, you're like, oh, this is like a different vibe. Completely
different. So when I hear other people sample the same song, I'm just like, oh, this is its own thing. It doesn't sound anything like Black Coffee. Black Coffee to me is like, there it is. it's done just right. It's done perfectly. You can't do better. Or Abandoned too. Like, again, I don't think I've heard that sample anywhere else. Maybe once or twice, and it sounded nothing like the way it was flipped there. I love that. Or I don't know, man. There are so many great beats out there, and I'm sure there's just as many, if not more, of them available now. But because lo-fi, just like the same thing happened with vaporwave, people, as soon as people understood that, oh my god, this is such an easy genre to make, like such easy music to make technically, right? Doesn't mean it's easy to make really good or interesting vaporwave, but it's easy to make vaporwave. And so immediately, overnight, Bandcamp became oversaturated with was vaporwave, just taking pictures that people made of like the aesthetics on Tumblr, and then slowing down a bunch of funk songs from the early mid 20th century to late 20th century and calling it a day. And now people are doing the same with lo-fi hip-hop, where it's like, bro, you could have the shittiest computer, it doesn't even matter, download a free version of Virtual DJ, you could make an easy as lo-fi song, So people, because it's so accessible, people are doing it so much, and now it's oversaturated, and it's giving the perception that, like, damn, all of this shit sucks, because that's the shit that floats to the top in your searches. But there's good shit underneath.
I think really what it all comes down to is the same thing happened with vaporwave, in a sense of, like, I think it was like very experimental music, and there was no expectation placed on it at first. Like, and I remember like that era, I was very active on Tumblr at the time, and it was like everybody who had a Tumblr personality had a vaporwave record, and it was like it became like a joke to a lot of people, it was like, oh, like, listen to my shitty vaporwave record, and people were, so it became like it mixed so weirdly into like ironic internet culture that you couldn't tell when people were being sincere and trying, or if the art itself was supposed to be like a joke, or like there was a whole bunch of different things. But I think the thing is that the same thing happened with lo-fi in a different way, is like there was no expectation back in first and second wave. There was no like, oh, this is supposed to sound like this. So like if you listen to like a Basagi record, a DiBiase record, a Jax record, like any of those, they sound so sonically different from like anything you'd hear now on like a lo-fi radio playlist, because they were just making rap beats. It felt like, it was like, just like, oh, we're making beats with samples that we like, and this is what we like. And it wasn't like there was no blueprint except for just like boom-bap and rap. And that I think as soon as expectations came into play, especially with vaporwave, because I remember seeing the thing of like, oh, vaporwave's so easy to do, anyone could do that. And then I saw like the meme was like, but you didn't. So this is like why it's cool. It's because like this is, you didn't do this. Sure, it was easy, but like, yeah,
it's not about the effort that goes into something necessarily. It's about achieving something that's interesting, or something that's good, or something that it's just the result matters more than necessarily with the effort that goes into it, right? But the problem now is the result is a carbon copy after carbon copy, and that's where it becomes a problem, where the easiness of creating the genre becomes kind of a crutch for people, or an invitation for people to come make music. And it's great, people should make music. I'm not saying like, damn, don't, unless you're a fucking genius, just stop. No, I'm just venting about what I perceive as so many people like jumping into it and not having the ability or experience or creative fortitude to push it forward, do something different. The same people who complained about, man, the fucking trap just ain't going anywhere, man. These 808s and these trap hi-hats and everything, they're so played out, and they've been here for over 10 years now. Yeah, well, so has this version of boom-bap that needs to also push things forward and move on and do something different. I need
I
to
mean,
piss
if we want to talk about experimentation and like scenes melding, like there's been way more experimentation in trap music, because like if you listen to like something that Zaytoven made in 2011 versus something that Filthy or Oogie Mane made like last year, you'll be like, what the fuck? You know what I'm saying? It's like the 808 sounds are so different and strange, like in comparison. Like 808s now are just weird. Like I love it.
Oh yeah,
like,
yeah, absolutely.
Like,
it's very different.
Fucking, these super like it's like a drill in your ear. Like
Listen
it's like
to
such a strange.
Ti's first like couple of albums and compare that with like I don't know something that's modern right now. I love a lot of like the DJ Mustard stuff. I thought was really good because to me that stuff was almost more 90s. You know what I mean? It's like super stripped down of everything. It's got that like 90s Oakland or like, you know, Bay Area kind of sound mixed with like some southern influence and like Florida stuff in there. But then you also listen to something like Good Kid Mad City and it takes, you know, elements of trap from different places and mixing that in with more like soulful and like funk kind of stuff that, you know, and I love the addition of funk elements from the West Coast and the trap element inspired stuff from the South. Those mesh very well. It's been pushed forward. Of course we can all just look at it like, well, the 808s, you know, or it's like saying, damn, I can't believe rock music, they still using those fucking electric guitars. When are they gonna fucking move on? You know, it's like these are just instruments.
The thing I can't quite understand about people bagging on 808s is like, okay, like I could understand if it was the same samples being used all the time, because like if you just literally used a TR-808 drum machine over and over and over and over and over again, that would be dumb. But like people are making new 808 samples. Like no one's used a TR-808 in a while, I would think. Like in modern, you know, I think the only person that I can think of in like modern mainstream, if you want to call this mainstream rap, that uses a 808 is fucking LP. You know?
Yeah, and you would never say LP makes trap music, because LP, what he's doing is like completely different, and he's mixing that traditional 808 with Moog synths and, you know, live sax and stuff like that. And yo, can we hold on a second? I really need to go whiz. I'll be right back.
Go take a whiz, buddy.
You can tell people a story while I'm away, or we could just cut back to it.
I'll do it. I'll tell a story. I'm
sorry, guys. I've been drinking a lot of water. It's hot today.
Yeah, he's been drinking a lot of water. He's been drinking water, dude. So I'll tell you guys the story while he's taking a whiz. So, let me see. Story time with Bill. So, one time, let me think of a good one. I gotta think of a good story, guys. I'm on the spot. Let me tell you guys the story about how we almost got caught with a big ass jar of weed one time leaving a Food Lion. So my old roommate, when I was living in Columbia, used to work at a Food Lion, and I was there with like 3 of my friends to go pick up some weed from him because he used to sell weed. And he was like, oh, well, go ahead in my car. He drove like a beat up ass Mustang, and he didn't even like lock his doors because the doors were all fucked up. He was just like, you can just go in my car and grab my big ass jar of weed and then put it in your car and then leave, right? And so I'm like, all right, cool. We can smoke when we get back, blah, blah, blah. I paid him some so I could get my shit and weigh it out and stuff. He trusted me to weigh it out. And so we go to the Food Lion, which is like 20 minutes away from our apartment. And like we get there, and then I get out of the car. Actually, no, I sent my friend to get out of the car, and he's wearing like basketball shorts, right? And I was like, just grab the jar, put it in your pocket, and walk in. And now this is like a big ass mason jar of weed. Like I'm talking about, like we would have gotten like intent to sell probably, like like if we got caught with it. So as we're parked right next to him, and he gets out and he gets into the car and he grabs the jar and he puts it in, I look over and he can't see from where we're at, but there's a cop like creeping right behind us, right? And I'm like, fuck, that cop can see us. He's getting in, and he's going to go ahead and get in the car here, you know, blah, 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 right? So I'm a little bit like sussed out, right? But then I'm kind of like, oh, it's okay. Like he didn't see. It's like fine to get something out of someone's car and leave, you know? So we look in the rear view when he gets in the car, and I was like, oh shit, man, you almost got caught by that cop. Like, he saw you doing it. He was like staring at you all sussed out, you know? And then like, so we're driving away and we look back and the cop is like tailing us. And like, so we're going the speed limit, but we're just trying to get the fuck out of there, you know, before he turns his lights on, right? So I guess he was like running my plates and shit, because it was my car, but I wasn't driving. And so I'm in there and we're all like freaked out. We're all like, oh no, this dude's gonna fucking catch us with this big ass jar of weed, and I don't know what's gonna happen, you know? And so we get to the we get to the stoplight, and the dude's like right on our ass, and I was like, fuck, you know? So then we went down this, like, we were like thinking like maybe he's just going to the main road. So like we went down this like weird neighborhood drive to get back, like this back way to get there, and that he's like following us this whole time. And I'm like sitting here like, why doesn't he just turn his fucking lights on? Like, why is he following us but not doing anything, you know? And I guess he was waiting for us to speed or fuck up, you know? And
I'm back.
I'm still telling a story, buddy. I'm still telling a story.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
So the cop's behind us, and we're sitting there with this big ass jar of weed, and I think we're gonna get fucking caught with it, right? He's tailing us. We go down this like back road. He's not turning his fucking lights on and shit. So I'm sitting here thinking like, oh, he's just waiting for the right moment to pull us. Well, anyway, we somehow got off onto the main road and lost him, and we got away. But I remember like feeling like I didn't even want to smoke weed ever again, because this fucking dude was like, he was definitely like sussed out and definitely tailing us. And I was like, this is it, we're gonna get caught with this big ass jar of weed. Let me tell you guys something real quick. Never ride around with big ass jar of weed. Welcome back. I was giving the good people at home a lesson. Never ride around with a big ass jar of weed. Like, there's no reason to have a big ass jar of weed. Like, just get a normal amount of weed and go back to your house. Don't fucking ride around with an ounce with a cop behind you. You know what I'm saying? Right. Don't do that. Don't put yourself through what I put myself through, you know? Yeah. So that's my advice. Just get the amount of weed that is appropriate if you're going to illegally consume, and fuck cops.
Yes, absolutely. Fuck cops.
Yeah, so what were we talking about? I just told a story.
So, yeah, we were talking about... we were just basically, like, rambling.
Just shitting on lo-fi. We said,
just
fuck
shitting
lo-fi.
on lo-fi.
All my homies hate lo-fi.
Absolutely, yeah. And...
pooping on it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. All of those things. All of those things. And yeah, but I am excited about all the music I've been working on.
Gross.
On this album, for my album, you know, my debut. So I can't wait for
debut.
Debut
Man,
album.
You think you're so cool, huh? You think you're so fucking cool with your debut album, your debut.
My debut. Well, the thing about my debut album is that it's still a work in progress at the moment, so I'm not like overly proud. I'm proud of the songs, the individual songs, and how everything's coming together so far, but I'm nowhere near done. I say nowhere near done. I'm more than halfway done, I would say. I'm like 85% done in terms of writing it, and maybe 30% done recording it. So, but I still aim to be done with it this summer. So I have about like 4 weeks left to go.
Damn. So you better hurry the fuck up.
I better hurry the fuck up if I want to release it this fall. I think
you're gonna make it, buddy?
I think I should be able to. Yeah, I hope so. I sure hope so.
I feel that. Yeah, I was talking to you about this earlier, but I've been working on this self-produced album. But it's been taking a long time. Well, partially because I haven't been able to work on it as much, because sitting in this chair is like kind of bad for my leg. It makes it swell.
Oh, I see.
Because it's not elevated. So it's like kind of like I've been fucking around with it some, just sitting down with my laptop but it's a little bit less fulfilled. Like, it's like I'm in my zone when I'm in here in the studio room and I have like the good speakers and I'm like, oh yeah, I feel comfortable. You know what I mean? Instead of just like in a bed awkwardly trying to make it, you know? But yeah, like it's taken longer because it's self-produced, and I've learned that, speaking as someone who's never like sat down and self-produced an album before, like something that like really like means a lot to me. Now I realize like I'm micromanaging every little aspect of it, and I'm spending so much time on the beats, and I'll like make something and record, and then I'll add more, and then record, and then add more, and it's like this like I'm really being super ambitious, and
that sounds exciting.
I'm trying to like push myself in this like direction I've never like gone before. Not with the rapping, because I feel like I'm pretty confident in like how I rap. Like I sit here, I'm like, okay, like I can just sit here. The rapping part's the easy part. It's like building. I'm trying to like focus on like world building and like get the skits right, etc. And it's kind of like so far it's been kind of stressful because I'm sitting here like, when do I stop? When do I start? When do I... It's a lot of like, I'm questioning everything, but I kind of don't want to like get input from other people, because it's like, I want this to be 100% me, like good, bad, and ugly. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
And that's kind of like where I'm like at with that. But in the meantime, I've also been making a bunch of singles just to put out. I've got like 3 or something like that ready to go. And then I've actually got one. I say it's coming out tonight, but it came out last Friday night at midnight, or Saturday morning at midnight, whatever. It's Drowning 101 with John Average, produced by Tristan. And it's actually one of the songs that I made. I don't know if you guys remember, but I wrote and recorded a song over a beat that Tristan, our good friend Tristan, who is like a producer who just got started and basically started making beats from watching my streams. He sent me this beat in. I rapped over it, wrote and recorded it. I got John Av on it. No one's heard that part yet. And that just came out. And it's got several Grammys already.
Yeah, by the time this is out, that's true.
By the time this is out, it's got several Grammys, and it's got 500 million plays on Spotify. I can't believe it, dude. Can't believe
I'm excited.
it, man.
I love that song.
Thanks, man. I just wanted. It's really cool to get John Average on a track, because like I've been a fan of his for like a minute, and then like I met him in Atlanta. We did that show together with Shango in like February. And yeah, ever since then, man, it's just been kind of like, oh, we need to get something done. And then we finally got something done. So that's cool. He's really good. Yeah. And then, I'm just making a bunch of singles now too, just to have stuff to put out that is not self-produced. I mean, some of it might be, but stuff that's not on the album, because I think that I've realized like the longer that I sit here and work on this, there'll just be this big gap in between like my last release and this one, and like I want people to still like I still want to like feed people and like, here's my music, here's what I've got going on now, you know. But
yeah,
I don't know.
Exciting. That's
it's less
really
pressure too. Yeah, and it's just something to do. So just be on the lookout for more singles from your boy, some hot singles in your area.
I'm interested in your album because of the way you describe it, and of course I have heard nothing from the album yet, unless you showed something
on purpose. To me. I have not showed you anything from the album on purpose.
Yeah, I don't think you have. So, that sounds exciting. I know that when I went into my album, I also thought I was gonna produce all of it, but I was open to the idea of working with other people, and now I'm like, okay, I produced some of it.
I produced none of it.
I've definitely produced some of it, but not all of it. Yeah. I am mixing, of course, all of it, and again, putting everything together and like sequencing. Which I
haven't heard this either, by the way.
No, you haven't heard anything off it, I don't think. there's maybe one song that might end up being on it that you have heard before, but I think that's about it.
That yodel solo on that one is so good, dude. I can't believe you mastered yodeling for your album.
Yeah, thanks, man. And then, yeah, all the album art and everything. I actually got some album art for it, and now I'm like, I don't want to use it for the album art because it's like now I kind of prematurely went into the album art thinking like this is what it's gonna be like, but now it's taking a different shape, the music. So I might just use it for a single release or something.
I feel that.
I don't in the future, but yeah, I'm having fun. And to me, to be honest, I know I was saying like I'm excited to see how everyone else is going to react to it. The truth is, what I'm most excited about is being done with it and being able to listen to it myself. Because to me, it's really important that I don't regret anything about it. This is why I'd rather if I need to take a few more months to do it, then I'd rather do that, because regardless of whether something takes you just a few days to make or a few years to make, once it's out, and you'll look back at it as like, this is something I put out. And now I want to be able to look back on this project and be like, I am happy with how it turned out. I said the things I wanted to say. I feel like it's an accurate representation of who I was in terms of, my mindset, my abilities, whether it's like rapping, performing, or anything like that, and my ability to sequence and put everything together. I just want it to be something that, I guess, it's something I don't regret. That's it.
I feel that, dude. I feel that 100%. Man, that's what I want to do too. I want to sit down and listen. That's like one thing that I really miss about I haven't dropped a solo record in so long, and I feel like just sitting down. I just remember like listening to Ramona the first time, listening to Resin in its entirety the first time, and like just feeling so proud. Same thing with Drop Season, even though Drop Season was a little different. Like I think that Ramona was like the craziest one for me because it was the first one, and I remember you were there, but like we were up so late and I didn't have to work the next day, and so I was just like, fuck it, dude, I'm staying up all night. I stayed up till like 6 or 7 a.m. Like I remember the sun was out when I went to sleep because I just listened to the whole album twice, and then waking up, it felt like Christmas, like when we put it out. And it was just such an indescribable feeling. And I've never felt that. I probably will never feel like that again. And well, I mean, like I guess I kind of did. Like when I dropped Resin, that was like the last time that I felt like, because it was like a solo and it was like a lot more. I was a little bit more involved on the production and stuff on that, and it felt more like even though I feel like it's such a weird album, like. I really don't
aged very well, though. I feel like it has aged very well.
I appreciate that, but I will say that there's definitely moments on it where I'm like, what the fuck was I doing? I was definitely like, I was on some shit. That was like when I was like experimenting with like more drugs.
But I love that. I love how experimental it is, for sure. It's such a different approach. It's such a different you than like Ramona. I do think we get some moments that are quite similar, whether it's just like, the last joint or I guess I feel like most shit on it, like Cerulean, RPG, Chakras, like Gangsta Rap 101, and I don't know, everything seems so different and unique, and especially the joints that you produced yourself were definitely super unique and put your album in like in my head, it's like compartmentalized in a very different part of my brain than Ramona. And it's aged very well. I feel like I appreciate Resin now more than I used to back then.
Maybe, I don't know, like, cause I remember like when coming off of Resin and feeling like I fucked up. Like I was like, this isn't gonna be as big. Yeah, like I felt like at first I was like, damn, I did some shit, And I think a part of that was because I was so tapped in with what was going on in like the music scene at the time, like in several scenes. Like I was so like, I didn't have a life, so it was just kind of like I was always looking and seeing what was going on and talking to people like constantly, and so it just became like I remember like a good example would be like I was downloading. This is like back when like DatPiff was still kind of a thing, and people were like, you could just download mixtapes. I'm sure it's still a thing, but people used it. And I remember like one day, it was right before Resin came out. I downloaded. It was like a Death Grips album, a Bones album, and like a fucking like a Waves album or something, right?
Yeah.
Like 3 very different types of music, and I was like listening to all of them, and like each one of them like inspired me in some kind of way. Like I was like, oh, like I could use this, I could do this, and it was like I didn't know what I wanted to do for the album. Like it was just kind of like I just want to like make stuff and just throw it together, and the whole like almost like a radio switching channels randomly. Like that was kind of like the thematic thing to like tie it all together. But like at the time I was like, man, this is, I just remember there were so many people who were like, man, like I saw it on like 4chan and stuff, because I had like Google alerts for like Kill Bill the Rapper and stuff. And so like I would see like people talk about like on 4chan and be like, wow, like this is a miss, like he really like fucked this up in comparison to the last album.
That's so interesting. That's, you know, to me, if anything, I look back at it just like, wow, he did the perfect thing. He came in through the door, dick swanging with Ramona, just like the dick swung and like fucking took the window out immediately, right? And it was and you felt this breath of fresh air enter the room, and then he left, and then he comes back with Resin, but he came through the fucking vent, and and just like, what the fuck? Why didn't he use the door? Like he used the door last time. Naked. Not only did you come through the vent, your sack dropped first through the vent. Then it slapped everybody around in the room, and then the rest of your body descended. And there was this breath of fresh air that was different, because it was from this rusty old vent where the dust had settled and been there for years, and now it's all over this room, and it's so different. And I love how saturated Resin is. You know, like, to me, there are songs on, like, Ramona is my preference in terms of sound overall, but now that I feel like there's certain individual songs that I come back to more on Resin. So I feel like it's just 2 very different beasts, and man, I think you couldn't have done anything better.
I just don't. Thanks, I appreciate that, but like I don't understand how people could even compare those 2 records, because I see people like argue sometimes. They'll be like, "Oh, well, this one's better, or this one's better," and I'm like sitting here like it's just so sonically different.
So different.
Like I think it just comes down to your taste at that point, because like there's certain people that would like think like maybe Ramona is too straightforward, or like it's just kind of like, oh, blah blah blah. Well, then I would say then maybe go check out Resin, because that's like weirder, like much weirder. And then some people would think like, oh, that's too weird for me, it's not palatable enough, etc. Even if there are moments that are like super like just straight up like, this is just me rapping, this is a soul sample, etc. Like there's definitely moments on there where I'm like the collab with Ozcob, like that shit's real fucking weird. The weirdest beat I ever rapped on was that what was the one Anime Love Song, which I actually hate that song now. I hate the beat so much, but like really? It's like one of my favorite. Yeah, dude, the beat is so strange. And I remember one of the good examples was, I didn't know, like, I feel like I was like just kind of just trying to work with a bunch of different people too, like, you know, like Crime Wave and like people in the scene. And originally I sent Anime Love Song to Shango. Like I was like, let me get Shango on here, which is a weird, like in hindsight that would be kind of weird, but right. I remember being like, oh, you want to get on this? And then he didn't respond. And then apparently like Connor told me later, he was just like, yeah, he said he hated that beat. He was like, really? You wanted to do something, but he didn't like the beat. Yeah. Which I understand. Like I hate that beat now too. I wish I rapped over something like more normal.
I fucking love that one. Are you kidding me? I think it's incredible. It's and this was around the time when also, like, I remember when you came out with the album, people were like, oh, this is vaporwave rap. This is where people are still trying to, like, throw words onto things. And they're like, yeah, listen to that song, Gods of the Mezzanine, and RPG, and maybe even Cerulean, the first parts, and tell me this isn't some sort of vaporwave, like, Plunderphonics rap. And I love anime love song. I think it's so cool. You know what it makes me think of? Like, it gives me Evangelion vibes. Like, I imagine living in that world, you know? And
that's interesting. And I can't remember what that sample is. It was some like really, I'm pretty sure it's from a hentai. Like, I'm almost sure that it's because I was like trying to sample like kind of weird stuff.
So wait, you made that beat?
Anime love song?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't dude, can you make me something like that?
Yeah, I mean, literally all I did was slowed down.
I'm joking.
Yeah, I did some funky shit, but I didn't really.
No, I mean, if you could find like, I don't know, fucking some other sample like that, maybe from another hentai or something, and send it to me. Because
I don't remember what happened. Was I could give you some insight on this, because like it wasn't like I was just like watching hentai and then I was like, oh, I'm gonna sample this. Like, it was there was this whole like I think part of it was because like I was on Tumblr at the time, and like one of the things that I always would like, anime titty was like a meme, and I would always like, I like art, like I like just like anime art or just any art, and
same.
I would repost shit that I liked, but then like anytime it was like a gif of like anime titties, I would always repost it. Sorry, I would always repost it and then put like anime titty as the tag, right? And then like there was this whole thing of like somehow that correlating with my music, they said that it was like I was like a hentai rapper. Like,
really?
And this is kind of pre-Resin, and then Resin, when I did the DJ Hentai Daddy thing, everyone like really doubled down on it for some reason. Yeah. And even though like I've never like, I mean, I think I said the word hentai maybe like twice in my bars ever, but I think like sorry, I have coronavirus.
It's okay.
So like I think that there was a part of me that kind of resented that, and I was like, well, you know what, I'm a sample of hentai. And then I went and found, I like looked up like 80s hentai, and I figured out a way to like rip it from Pornhub. I'm pretty sure that's what it was. I can't remember exactly, but I remember just like slowing it down, but like not changing the pitch, and that was like the whole process of rapping over that.
Yeah.
Also, Prisms was like sort of similar. That was like a Kikaider sample, I believe.
Yeah, that beat was crazy.
Kikaider is a great anime. I don't know which one it was, but there was the one, not the live action one, obviously, but the one that they played on Adult Swim was the one I sampled. I'm pretty sure it was Android Kikaider something on Adult Swim. Let me look it up. Hold on. Now it's gonna bother me.
Yeah, go figure it out. Fucking.
I'm pretty sure this was it.
Piece of garbage.
Yeah, it's Android Kikaider. Came out in the year 2000. It's a really good one. Yeah, pretty interesting. Anime.
Animu. Amuna. Amnimum. Amnime. Sorry, dude.
Are you done?
I'm just trying something different, okay, with this podcast. I'm just trying to push the envelope.
This is our experimental one. We pissed off lo-fi fans and producers.
You say this is the experimental one right after the RAF POV podcast is funny to me.
Yeah, that was definitely. I'm leaving all my coughs in, by the way.
You should.
Yeah, dude. That's the experimental part, is me just not editing.
Yes.
You know? Yes. Just kind of, like just leave in everything. The cameras are rolling for a reason. Yeah, no, the RAV POV one was great, man. I love that one. I love the recording process of that one, you know?
Yeah, and I love how we told everybody to just like, you know, wherever like I'm supposed to be there, you just imagine that you're talking with Bill. But the problem is I kick the podcast off and I kick the conversation off and the ad.
Yeah.
So it's just you reacting to things mostly.
Did you like how I just added the ad music like before I started talking, because I knew that was like good. What you're supposed to be.
Yeah, exactly. No, you did the right thing. That's where I went ad time, you know. So it was so funny, and Yeah, so it made me realize just how much I talked in the last episode. Because there's I had to jump for your moments.
My favorite episodes to edit are ones where you talk a lot. Because
Why?
it's like, because it's just like, I know like where to cut things on my end, and it's just like incredibly easy because it's like snap, and then I can just like cut out whole sections, and then like I know that I'm not gonna edit out your stuff, so I can just like listen to it on like the 1.5 speed, and then just hear you talk, and it sounds like you're like Ben Shapiro or something because you talk so fast when you
when you speed it up,
yeah, and it's just like it's a really chaotic energy. You have to be there. You have to be there for it to really understand it.
I get it, man. I fucking get it. But yeah, it's interesting, man. Like, I remember when, just quickly going back to Resin one last time, is when you came out with Resin, I really loved it, and I remember being blown away that like this motherfucker did it so fast, right? Like between Ramona and Resin. It
was like 3 months.
And you managed to drop Ramona and Resin right before I managed to finish Beneath the Toxic Jungle, which I worked on Beneath the Toxic Jungle before Ramona was out, you know? It was like, so for you to have put it out so quickly, and I thought it was such high quality and so different to Ramona. It's like, you know, completely different. It's kind of like when we're talking about Eden Blue, Red, and Black for the really like hardcore fans. You know, to me, this Ramona would have been Eden Blue and Resin would have been Eden Black. You know, where it's just like such a different energy, such a different sound, and
yeah,
it's. But I remember still like being so attached to Ramona, and I still am. It's one of my favorite albums of all time, and I remember just being so attached to Ramona that I thought like, this is good, but Ramona is like the one I'm going to keep returning to way more. I know that for a fact. And as of late, I've started developing nostalgia for Resin. It's just interesting how like I'm actually
I developed nostalgia more for the time. Because that was like when I had first moved back home. I just met my girlfriend. We were like in the process, like as I was making the album, was like the process of like when we were like starting to become serious, and it was just like I don't know, man. Like I did acid for the first time, and like there was just like a lot of stuff going on. I just moved in, just set up my spot in pretty much it's the same house that I'm in now, you know, and it was like I just have this like really deep nostalgia for those times. And kind of in the same way that I have a deep nostalgia for the times when me and you were like making Ramona, but it was like a very different, because it was like I was by myself. And
yeah, and I think I have nostalgia for a lot of the time, like when the album came out where I was in my life as well, and like how I listened to it and everything. But something, I don't know, the sound of it is just, it really takes me back. And you did a fantastic job, and I don't think you should regret any moments on that, especially not Anime Love Song. How fucking dare you?
Fuck that song.
That song's
fuck you.
Great. Fucking love it. I love that
Pussy
song.
boy.
Love God in the Mezzanine.
Fuck on your dad. Right in front of you.
Bet you won't do it, pussy. Bet you won't.